Yes, it is a very enjoyable experience. It's just like volunteering at your school or the local community to do things. Yes, you give your time, but you also enjoy the process. So I'm kind of curious, Kat, if you can talk about what was your driver, what got you personally involved with open source? What was the fun aspect there?
Um, I don't like it when I see something broken that I know how to fix that nobody else is fixing. So it was sort of an accident in my case, actually. I was still a software engineer at the time. I was using Kubernetes, but I wasn't contributing to it. To be more specific, I was using K3s. But many people listening will remember this drama because it was far-reaching, and we didn't handle it as well as we could have initially. But a long, long time ago, a few years ago, the Kubernetes project decided to deprecate the Dockershim. This was a tiny little software shim that allowed you to continue using the entire Docker tech stack as your container runtime. All that shim was doing was allowing access to the instance of containerd that runs inside of Docker Engine, and we deprecated that. We deprecated it because it was a maintenance nightmare. It was an extra thing that we had to take care of, and it wasn't really in line with the ideals of the project, which was we wanted to standardize an interface for container runtimes, and we were allowing you to still use Docker Engine because it was the original container runtime. But it was time to change, so we deprecated it. And we I say we, I was not involved in the deprecation. It was before my time, but the Kubernetes project drastically overestimated what the average person understood about the relationship between Kubernetes and Docker and the difference between Docker and just a container image. So people freaked out like immediately everywhere. Cluster admins freaked out. Regular software developers who don't actually touch Kubernetes but do develop containerized applications freaked out. There were miscommunications involved here, but some people thought that this was Google killing Docker the company or Google killing Mirantis the company because there was some confusion about who owned Docker Engine. There People thought that Docker as a tool was going away and that nobody was ever gonna have a reason to use it anymore. And it was 6 in the morning and I had not had any coffee yet. And I saw people freaking out and they were wrong. They were freaking out about something they didn't need to freak out about. And I explained it in about 11 tweets. I went viral on tech Twitter, which was a super uncomfortable experience. Went from like 4,000 Twitter followers to like 12,000 in about 36 hours, which was also super uncomfortable, but also got dragged into SIG contributor experience for Kubernetes. They had me write a bunch of FAQs and an explanation of what was going on and the historical context of like why we were allowing Docker Engine all this time anyway, and then why we were changing in the future. And then I just kind of like didn't leave. It's like getting sucked into a bog, right? Because suddenly I could see all of this other stuff. Oh, I know how to fix that, and you're just letting it sit there. Give me that, I'll fix it. Until I landed on the release team, and then I just stayed on the release team for like 3 years until I led a release, and then they gave me the whole sub project, and now I'm truly trapped. Now I herd cats professionally for an open source project. It's fun though. It's fun. There's like no end of problems for me to solve. So it's I really enjoy it.
Yes, I remember when Mirante stepped in to support Dockershim after all the drama. And really, this committee has seen its share of drama over years, whether it was Debian versus Canonical or KD versus GNOME. But that's also the fun part of open source. Now, I'll talk to you, Billy. What about you? What was your very first interaction with open source? What got you hooked to it?
I sort of got into it by accident almost, but I had a Windows laptop that was so slow. It was so annoying. I just couldn't stand it. So I had a techie friend at the time, and I just said, I don't care. Just wipe it and put Linux on it. I'll figure it out. So my friend did that, and I just learned to use it. And because I had to teach myself, I was a regular on Stack Overflow, and that would be my big introduction to the really massive developer community. And it just carried on more and more from there to eventually I was somebody able to help answer questions on Stack Overflow, and then started with learning Python and then into Java and just kept going from there. And at the moment, so I am not a maintainer of anything, and I probably never will be. I write a lot of code, certainly, and I love writing code, and I try to share it as much as I can. But my ADHD is just too off the rails for me to consistently stick with one thing long term. I have the same problem even listening to my favorite podcast. Oxide and Friends, I love it. The content is always juicy. I still have a really hard time sitting still through a whole episode. So I contribute everywhere I can, as much as I can. I will probably never be able to sit still long to really commit to being a full-on maintainer. But my philosophy and the last team that I worked on, the last product dev team that I worked on, the rule for the team was anything that we write for ourselves internally, anything to make our jobs easier, you have to look at it and think, can I open source this? And how will I open source this? Because not only does that mean we need to very just right from the get-go stop ourselves from coding things that just help us, but how can this help other people with the same problem? And two, also doing it that way, it just ends up being better code when you're thinking about the perspective of other people who are trying to read this and maybe use it and hopefully contribute to it later on. So I still carry that with anything and everything that I code.